I want to tell you something incredible, like absolutely incredible. It's so incredible it's almost mind-blowing. Something happened less than 48 hours ago. More than 700 million people were watching 22 men kick a ball around a field trying to get it into a goal at either end. Think about it. 700 million people worldwide were watching 22 people play football. Getting a ball in the goal is obviously something that's quite important. One of the subjects which I teach in Orlagola, leadership and management, includes a section on managing objectives and goal setting. Why would you set goals in Kiruv? What goals could you or should you set in Kiruv? You could set goals like preventing intermarriage. You could set goals like Shabbos observance. You could set goals like enabling people to grow up and be frum balabatim, have frum families, so that in Mitzvah Hashem their children will be B'nai Torah. You could set goals that you want to enable people to become B'nai Torah, or even Talmidei Chachamim. Now, this is said with the proviso. No one makes anyone frum. It's not possible to make anyone frum. You can give someone the opportunity to explore, to learn, to make decisions, to make informed decisions. At the end of the day, you can only do your shtadlis. You can't possibly make someone frum. But if you can't make someone frum, what's the point in having a goal? Why should you know what you're trying to achieve? The answer to that is that knowing what your goal is will enable you to determine what you're going to do in order to achieve your goal and who you need to be in order to achieve your goal. So if your goal is that you want to prevent intermarriage, you're going to run certain type of activities with certain forms of interactions, and you need to be a certain type of person in order to be able to facilitate that. If, on the other hand, your goal is to build B'nai Torah, who are able to access sources for themselves, learn, and be growing and be true B'nai Torah for themselves, you require an entirely different skill set. You need to organize a different set of activities, a different seder of limud. If you were to look at the different yeshivas around Yerushalayim and look at what who their student body are, and what they learn, and how long they're in yeshiva for, you can determine what are the goals of the different institutions. So the first thing in Kiruv is to know, what are you aspiring to do? What opportunities are you looking to enable people to have? This last year, I have, year and a half more, I lose track, been working on a unique project. I showed you before this sefer, which we've just published, based on Rav Weinbach's Orlagola Shiurim. Now, many of us here will have known Rav Weinbach, others maybe not, and certainly many people here have not heard his Orlagola Shiurim. I knew Rav Weinbach in many different capacities. The first time I met him, I was coming to arrange for a non-religious group of students to come and hear Shiurim here in the yeshiva for a couple of days. And so I didn't even know that Rav Weinbach was the Rosh Yeshiva until after the fact. I left the meeting and said, who was the other gentleman in the meeting? It was the Rosh Yeshiva. So I've known him as a student leader. I've known him as a Talmud here in Yeshiva. I've known him when I was working in JLE in London for the Or Sameach branch there. Now back here working in Orlagola, running for the last 7 years. And you, obviously, Rav Weinbach, worked very closely with him in Orlagola and other projects in the Yeshiva. More working on this particular sefer, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Getting to appreciate him more, and then even more so last night as I was sitting preparing what I was going to say today. What this sefer is, a large part of it is based on what Rav Weinbach taught in Orlagola. And what his primary goal was in teaching was to teach a mahalach in preparing shiurim from primary sources. So this sefer is called a resource book for rabbis and educators. Now, if you go and look at a book of droshas in a sefer store, you go and you look and you'll see, here's a drosha that someone said over, another drosha that said over, you read it through and you think, oh, that's great, I can now take it and I can go and say it over. That is not what this sefer is. Because this sefer is a sefer for B'nai Torah. And the goal, and his goal, was to teach people a mahalach that they could go and prepare their own shiurim. So in here, aside from a CD there with recordings of more than 40 of his shiurim, there are typeset handouts of the different primary sources, that's Gomorrahs, Chumash, Meforshim, that he would quote, plus his thoughts on how to apply these sources and how you can take them and develop them into ideas for yourself, that you could then go and use that as the basis for saying over a shiur. Now that means it's not something you're going to read and say over, it's not possible to do. It's something you're going to read and you're going to learn, and you're going to take out the Torah Sheba'al Peh, you're going to take out yourself and apply yourself, and then be able to take it and to develop into something that you're able to use as a shiur. Why? Because his goal was preparing B'nai Torah to go and work in Kiruv, to go and be Mechanchim, to go and be Mekarvim, and to go and be Rabbanim. That's what we say here. This is a Kiruv seminar. The title, if you read it, says it's a Kiruv seminar for B'nai Torah, because that's what our goal is. That's who we're looking to work with, and that's who we're looking to train in Or Lagola. Rav Leff was talking. He was talking now of Yaakov Avinu and the stones fighting to put their head. That Yaakov would put his head on top of them. Pasuk says, "V'yifka b'makom v'yilan sham, ki ba hashemesh v'yikach me'avnei ha'makom v'yisam b'rchosav v'yishkal b'makom ahu." Rashi, explaining on the stones, explains that he put the stones, 12 stones, he put them around his head, kamin barvaz. He put them around his head like a semicircle to protect himself from wild animals. Now, I've been camping. I've come out of a tent and come face to face with cows, right? And the tent's a minimum protection from a behemoth. If you're going to set something around you to protect yourself from wild animals, would you put stones spaced out around your head, not the rest of you? Does that sound like it's going to be safe? The Gomorrah at the end of Makos describes an incident when Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, and Rebbi Akiva are walking, and they came to Har Otzfim. That time, they tore their garments. When they came to Har Abayis, a fox came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the place where it was. The Rabbanim with Rebbi Akiva cried, and Rebbi Akiva laughed. And they got into a discussion. He's asking them, why do you cry? They're asking him, why do you laugh? The answer of the Rabbanim was, how could we not cry? A place where a czar, if he was going to offer a korban, he would die, and now there's foxes walking there. It's an enormous tragedy. We're forced to tears. Rebbi Akiva answered them and said, how could we not cry? Rebbi Akiva brought them a pasuk saying he'd bring them edus, he'd bring them testimony against what they were saying, or why he was laughing. And the psukim we brought talked about Uriah Cohen and Zechariah ben Yevarchiu. What's the connection between the two? Uriah was in the time of the Bias Rishon, and Zechariah in the time of Bias Sheni. They had two different nevuas, two different prophecies. Uriah had a prophecy of a Beis HaMikdash in ruins. The Yerushalayim would be plowed over. The Beis HaMikdash itself, Har Abayis, would be like a wild forest, would be like a jungle. And Zechariah had a prophecy of the Zakenim, of the elders, returning to Yerushalayim and sitting and living and dwelling again in Yerushalayim. And Rebbi Akiva said, now that you know that one prophecy had come true, Mirz Hashem, you know that the other prophecy will also come true. Great. The sages were comforted. Sam Sofer asked an incredible question. The sages knew both of these nevuahs. Why should it be? How could it be that they didn't have Rebbi Akiva's teretz? What did they see differently? Now that they were crying and they weren't heartened, they knew this prophecy had come true. What's going to be in the future? That should also come true. There was a difference of understanding in the first prophecy. What does it mean that Harabias was going to be a place that was full of Bamos Ya'ar, of heaps of stones in a jungle or heaps of stones in a forest? What sort of animals did they expect to see there? The sages in the jungle expected to see the animals you see wild in the jungle, whether it be lions, tigers, bears. Rebbi Akiva was going with Shitaso. There's a different Gomorrah, Gomorrah in Brochos, just before Rebbi Akiva was about to be. There's a time of Roman rule, Roman decree. There's a prohibition about teaching Torah. And Rebbi Akiva is sitting in public and he's teaching Torah. Papas ben Yehuda comes up and challenges and says, how can you be teaching Torah at a time like this? He answered with a mashal. The mashal of a fox walking along beside the banks of a river. We all know the story. Fox walking along the banks of a river and seeing the fish darting from place to place, swimming around the river. And the fox asks them, what are you doing? Why are you running from place to place? The fish answer, they're afraid from man, they're running away from his nets and traps, they don't want to be captured. So the fox invites them to come up on land and he'll shelter them and they'll live together with them and their ancestors and they'll all be safe. They answer him, fox, you're meant to be a wise animal. You're a tipesh, you're a fool, right? We get our life from the water, we get our life from living here. This is where we live. To come out of that, that's not something we can do. Torah obviously is compared to the water. And that is where we get our life, immersed in Torah. And someone coming like Papas ben Yehuda to entice people away from Torah, like the fox, to entice people away from Torah, that is something that cannot be tolerated. So Rebbi Akiva going with Shitaso, when he sees a fox coming out of the Beis HaMikdash, he views that as the wild animal. He views that as the forest, the jungle. This is it. Right? He sees already the fulfillment of the prophecy. And that's why he knows to laugh, because the future prophecy will come true. Whereas the other Rabbonim don't yet perceive that as coming about. So let's come back to Yaakov. This is now, that was the Psalms over, end of the Psalms over, the Chiddush from Rav Weinbach. When Yaakov Avinu was surrounding his head with the stones, he was protecting for future generations and looking forward to the future. He was protecting people from the influence of the fox, protecting his descendants from being pulled away from Torah by people coming to entice them away. And that's why the stones go around the head and not the entire body. There's a custom that we have that on Tisha B'Av, some people sleep with a stone on their head, or under their head as a pillow. Where does that come from? It comes from the same source. There's a tradition that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the stones of the Beis HaMikdash travelled all over the world, and wherever they land, now stands a Beis HaMidrash or a Beis Knesset. They're a place which protects us in Galus. Why? Because they're in Mokum Torah. They're a place where we learn, where we're B'nai Torah, and we can come and we can be Makarev people to Torah. That concept of B'nai Torah, that concept of who we are and what we're aspiring to be, and who in Meretz Hashem, if we're involved in Kiruv, we're involved in teaching schools, or teaching children in schools, or in Rabbonis. We're very low on time, but just Or Lagola, we train people for positions in those Klei Kodesh, Kiruv, Chinuch, Rabbonis. Our graduates are worldwide. I was thinking to try and mention some, but Baruch Hashem, there's hundreds. We have hundreds of graduates out there doing fantastic work. Meretz Hashem, many of them come back and they bring people to the Beis HaMidrash, they bring people here to our Sameach and to other yeshivas in Yerushalayim over the summer and over the winter months in programs to visit. And many of those students, in the same way when I first came with a student group, they come and they might come for initially a few hours, a few days, but then they become involved for many, many years. In Meretz Hashem, we will continue our good work. You will all find a place to be part of that, and also to be ashpia on many other people, bring many other Yidden close to Torah and Klal Yisrael.